Now you're welcome back. So, latest in our series of GAA Roadshows in association with SuperValu, calling on GAA fans across the country to support where you're from. You can check out our social channels on OTB Sport and facebook.com/SuperValu Ireland as well for more information. We are building up to a Connacht Final on Sunday, Mayo against Galway. David Brady, Michael Meehan are back with myself and Kieran Donaghy. And very happy to say that Claire Egan joins us as well. 4 All-Irelands in 5 years, played from 98 through to 2016, no less. Claire, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks,
that's
Claire.
a bit of a trip down memory lane. I think earlier on today I was asked about different Connacht titles in All-Irelands, and maybe David can speak to this as well. I had to kind of cast my mind back. I couldn't really remember. I think one of the researchers was asking me about a time back in 99 and 2000, which is a lifetime away, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's only when you start talking about these things you can't really remember it. Your mind gets a bit foggy.
In fairness, you've more medals to count. It's a bit harder for you.
Well,
Joseph.
Sorry, DB, that was a cheap shot. Cheap shot on you there.
I can't wait for the day we're back non-socially distant, Joe. I'll have the clip ready for you, buddy.
I can imagine.
Don't worry.
So Claire, because Mayo obviously had this great success early on in your career, as you said, and then it seemed like Galway were sick of ye and building up to take ye down, and then that happened eventually in 2004. So it was testy, was it?
Yeah, 2004 definitely, because it was loaded with so many things. Like we had beaten Dublin in 2003, and it was the first year a championship had changed. It used to be previously just be knockout and that was it, but they had a quarterfinals stage. And then coming into 2004, Galway had been promoted. They have a different tier system, so they come from junior up to senior. So I think we met them in the league perhaps twice. I can't actually remember. I think we might have beaten them in the league, but then we played them in the Connacht Final, I think in Castlebar, and they absolutely hockeyed us. Like it was an embarrassment. I mean, I think we were beaten by, it was a scorching hot day. They must have beaten us by 15 points. Like we were dreadful. So then we had to go and beat Cork in the quarterfinals, which we did. And then it was nicely set up to play Galway in Portlaoise. And yeah, that was memorable in lots of ways. I think Mayo probably played with a full complement of 15, maybe for possibly 40 minutes of the game. At one stage, we were down to something like 13 players because we had 2 in the sin bin. And then in the second half, Diana O'Hora was sent off, and we were wrongly sent off, anyways, in my opinion, definitely. But we managed to, I think we were leading with 2 points to go, and Niamh Fahey actually got a goal. I think it put them a point up, but we managed to claw back and get the equalising point. But for us, like I was in college in Galway, and I'd say there was about 6 others, probably maybe 4 Mayo players in NUIG at the time, another 5 or 6 Galway girls. I was sharing a house with Fiona Gilmore, who was a sub-goalie, and she was the sister of Anya Gilmore, who was marking Cora in both games. And we had so many battles with them. But I think I was, when you're that close as well and sharing a house with people, I was suffering with the flu during the week. But you're dosing yourself with Nurofen. You're trying to pretend, no, everything's fine. It's just a little bit of a head cold. But we went to the Hyde. It was a Saturday night. It was a huge crowd there as well, relative to that time in terms of attendance at women's games. I think I'd been on Nurofen or whatever you're meant to be taking all week. So I played the first 25 minutes, and I think Finbar took me off then, and I came back on then in the second half. But Galway beat us. I think it went to injury time. They beat us by 2 in the end. But yeah, it was very. I think it was particularly difficult because it was the end of our group at that point, really, because Finbar Egan stepped down after it, and then we probably went into a situation for nearly a decade afterwards where we had different managers every year. So there's a lot that I remember back from that game, but it was kind of the end of an era for that particular group of players. So it was particularly hard. And then Galway went on. Now I definitely would say. They probably didn't win as much as they should have because they had a super team. Like Annette Clark, Lisa Cohill, Lorna Joyce, like Geraldine Keneally. They were, total footballers all over the field. But yeah, it was intense. Like, I can't speak to the current generation if it's that intense, but it definitely was when I was playing.
David, we had Finian Hanley on earlier, and he was saying his dad wouldn't let him eat ham if it was from Mayo. That was the intensity of their rivalry with Mayo. Anyway, what was your relationship with Galway then? Was it, full of hatred for you, or somewhere, on the spectrum of kind of respect, or you got on well with them, a friendly rivalry?
You know what? I hadn't time to respect them because it was non-stop hatred, if you know what I mean. It was battle after battle after battle. We never got an opportunity to probably get to know each other. And I would count the Galway guys, if you could say, I would know them as better than any team I ever came up against since I retired, because you can then probably relay your respect to them. I'd have had no respect for Pádraig Joyce or any of the Meehan boys, or Divley or Jeff Fallon or Kevin Walsh or any of these boys when you're playing against them, because you're hell bent on not letting them undermine what you want. But afterwards, I think it's such a nice respect we have for each other. We knocked lumps out of each other over the years, but we didn't need to give each other a chance. And then look at when they go and win the All-Ireland, you can't even look them in the eye. Never mind doing anything else. They've got what you've always wanted, and that 98 and 2001 just created that. I think in my mind a decade of intense rivalry. And look at, we've seen last Saturday night. But the only true rivalry that's left in provincial football on a consistent basis is Galway Mayo, without a doubt. I don't see it anywhere else. Yes, you might have it down the north, but the north is there's no real standout rivalry that says, here they go again. No matter what's gone in the past. But you haven't had no rivalry, Kieran, in the last 7 or 8 years with Cork in any way, shape or form. It hasn't been even a game. It hasn't even been in a contest. There haven't been even some finals against you. It's Mayo's first time in 5 years in a Connacht Final. But they weren't in a threat. They weren't, but now, right, thankfully that rivalry, I hope, is reunited down in Cork Kerry. But no matter what stage you're at in your football career, your football descendancy or anything, Mayo Galway will always serve an intense, deep-rooted rivalry. But it's an intense, deep-rooted passion for football, and that's the great thing about it. And there is no crowd at it. There is no supporters. But you know what? What'll go on in the pitch will be intense. That will make up for it.
David, were you cheering them on in '98? Were you hoping they'd do it in a West of the Shannon type solidarity pact?
No, Kieran's laugh tells you it all. I was my arse. Look at this is you're after breaking your arse. 96, 97 replay, lose it, and then they come and steal the thunder. It was like taking the love of your life away. Not at all. Okay. And you'd be praying to God. I remember that year, they had a replay against Roscommon in the Connacht Final.
Yeah.
And I was nearly jumping and roaring to see Roscommon drawing it, I think it was.
Jeez, your voice is going with just the sheer pain of it.
This is not the emotion thinking of Galway winning Ireland, that's for sure.
The emotion's coming up out of you.
Yeah, I do cry fairly easy, but not thinking of Galway winning Ireland. But and again, it spurred us to keep going, and to try and come back. And if you can see the Galway team as well. Just, I think my voice is breaking, boys.
That man needs a drink.
He did come back in a way with 04 and 06 because I'm sure the 98 definitely stung, but then you were probably looking at 2001 too, going, Jesus, lads, come on!
There you go.
Then you start getting the young team coming through again. You can start getting your Martins and these fellas through, and you're off.
Your sight is reset, and I do think that the way that you have to push yourself hard or train hard or focus longer is because your neighbour or your rival is pushing you to do that, and you're trying to overtake them as they increase as well.
And you must remember as well, lads, it's Knockout Sunday, because I'm not sure how, looking back at the Kerry performance, I'm not sure how much they played like their lives were on the line, we'll say, put it that way. You know, that kind of, that desperation mode. There's Galway and Mayo are going to be desperate on Sunday. Like they, like, what's good for both teams. It'll Mayo probably being slight favourites going into it. Mayo will probably look at it like you know, and say, look, lads, look at Kerry last week. If we don't show up and we're ready, Monday we're out. There's no qualifiers. There's no we'll regroup. There's no going away for a big meeting the following day to try and fix it all. This is it on Sunday. It's do or die, and there's only going to be one going forward and straight into an All-Ireland semi-final. It'll have to bring a big edge to it as well.
Oh, without a doubt.
It does, Claire. It does, Claire, make it about the best Connacht final in 20 years. You know that it's high stakes. It's knockout. Like, I'll be honest, you know, lots of people around the country, if they missed the Connacht final over the last 20 years, wouldn't have broke their hearts, because the losing team are standing there saying, right, well, the season starts now. You know, Mayo have made their way through the back door plenty of times of late, whereas suddenly, you know, there's going to be a big name on the ground like we saw last Sunday. Yeah,
like, I mean, circumstances, obviously, of which we're all aware of, have dictated that the championship is the way it is this year. But, you know, like, knockout brings its own kind of magic and kind of mania to matches as well, because I know from playing myself, when the back door came in, the qualifier route came in, you have that thing at the end of the day where you're like, okay, grand, we might have lost today, but sure, you know, we'll pick ourselves up in the qualifiers and we'll go again. And then to Kieran's point as well about, you know, they will look at the likes of Kerry, who are knocked out, and logically they will realise, okay, it's last chance. But I think that can also take away from what can happen on the day of the game, once the ball is thrown in, those unexpected things that can happen. And, you know, it is a cliche, but I don't think anyone knows what way it's going to go, because people maybe were a little bit surprised. I know David might disagree with this, let's say, as to how it was going to go against Roscommon as well. A phrase that's used a lot for Mayo at the moment is that they're in transition. I think that gives them a really exciting edge, because, you know, there was 8 newcomers up in Leitrim between 6 starting and the 2 coming on as subs, but they don't have any baggage. You know, they've none of that emotional baggage about, oh, you lost this year, you lost that year. And that is an amazing kind of energy that can infuse a whole group as well, and for games like Sunday. I'm definitely tipping Mayo for Sunday, though, of course, you know. Well, listen, naturally.
Yeah. Michael, the other ingredient that knockout adds is, you know, last 15 minutes, especially if you're a big favourite and it's not going your way, and Claire talks there about these unexpected mad things that can happen in a game and often do. Like, maybe panic is too strong a word, but something close to panic can kick in. You know, you're looking at the clock and saying, shit, this is it, we need to go.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with Claire about the youth. And I don't think, as a young footballer, I don't think I would have panicked as much as I did maybe, you know, later into your career. And there's a naivety, or there's an honesty, but there's something about it, the youth, that just have a freshness, and they're not going to carry it. So that last 15 minutes, you know, I don't think it weighs as heavily on a younger player. In some ways, in the past, I would have liked if it had weighed heavier on you as a younger player, just to kind of maybe get another % or 2 out of your performance or your concentration. But on the grand scheme of things, I think it's a blessing for a team. And, you know, I've been very impressed with what I've seen from Mayo's youths. We'll call them the new guys who are in, you know, maybe looking forward to playing their 3rd championship game in 3 weeks, next weekend or this weekend. I think we may well see, you know, some youths from the Galway side as well, that the Porrick has used, you know, has brought players through who have, you know, played a lot of football. They're only senior intercounty football this year under him. And I think we're going to see that, and maybe more of that come the weekend, just to bring. He's going to recall his own time in '98, that Galway team that won its first All Ireland had 5 or 6 under 21s. Some of them were under 20. They were under 21 the year later. So I think there's you can't underestimate what young guys bring to a squad, and just how you can kind of just unleash them and let them go and see where it can take you. So it just mightn't be, and the fact that you don't have the external factor of the 30-odd thousand roaring their heads off from outside the wire, you know, that element is taken away. So the players are somewhat freer just to go out and play. So the weight of the last 15 minutes mightn't just weigh as heavy as other years.
if Galway where they are, Mike, and it's been a bit hard for them because they had that game where the fixture wasn't fulfilled and their kind of time off. And if you look at Cork, they had a game like that as well, where they'd probably more time to focus in on themselves and not worry about an opposition and just set their sights on Kerry. And you're looking at Galway with last week and all the drama about it being called off and lack of preparation and all that. Obviously, it had nothing to do with Cork's performance. And I'm just wondering where Galway are at with the few injuries you have. Mayo rightly probably going in as favourites, and they'd be my favourites too. But I'm just trying to think of the Galway game plan. Are you similar to that kind of? You obviously don't want to happen what happened in the league where you go out and Mayo just rip you apart earlier on. So will the focus very much to be hang in there? And as Joe rightly says, you get to your 15 minutes to go, Galway level, down a point, up a point, and you're hoping that maybe the older guys on the Mayo team, the guys that have had a bit of disappointment, start going, Jesus, this is knockout now. If we don't get this over the line, we're gone. This is another year gone, another year of my career gone. Is that where Galway are at, you think, to hold in there to that time?
I think, just going back to your first point, that they would have learned on a Monday night or early Tuesday morning that the Sligo game wasn't going ahead that weekend. So they would have been rolling into maybe a training on the Tuesday night. So the chances are they had to rearrange their training schedule, and they had to look for, they were going to ramp up the training that Tuesday night again now, not knowing that they weren't going to be together or not going to be playing championship for, 12 days as opposed to, 5 days. So I think, you'd expect that it's a professional enough setup to have kind of, change the schedule, pencil in their A and B probably for the same time as if they were to play Sligo on the Saturday evening, and lay it on the line and just use it as a positive experience. Lay it on the line that this is now an opportunity for 30 or 35 EV to get an hour and 20 minutes of football, whereas if we were playing Sligo, 20 EV might have got an hour and 10 minutes. Show me what you got here. And, it would be a mantra of the management that they want lads to stand up. They want to give lads an opportunity. After the club championship, they brought in lads who hadn't been involved with Galway at all this year, and a couple of them were involved in the Dublin game, in the second league game. In the last league game that they played. Yeah. So I would see, and yourself as a player and as a manager, you have to kind of glean on the positives to take out of a situation like that. It was a desperate situation for everyone involved, but straight away, you have to trick your mind into taking a positive out of it. And I'm sure that has been the mantra. And, it very well can work in their favour, in the build-up to this weekend. But what are they going to try and do? They would have watched Mayo on Sunday, and Mayo were exceptional. Their running game is very strong. They have pace from everywhere. And Tommy Moore and Keelan O'Connor are making turnovers in the corner-back position. And then you have the lads going, the pace that they have in 2, 4, 5 and 6 gone. That McLaughlin has serious pace in the wing. So Galway are going to have to pick personnel. They're going to have to pick the team and match up on a couple of those guys, because we know the way James Horan plays. He has a crop of players coming through that will deliver, the game that he likes his teams to play. Couple that with Aidan O'Shea, there's a vital matchup there that went wrong in the league game. So they would have learned an awful lot in that league game. And they would have, they should be able to learn a lot from Mayo's performance against Roscommon, but they need to bring all that, because Mayo have the consistency of 5 games in a row. It's like running the qualifiers for them now, really. So they're really just tipping over this week and going again on Sunday. So if Pori can get matchups, I think matchups are a big thing, and just, starting the game early, staying in the game for as long as you can, and then looking, as you said, have with the confidence now. The likes of Paul Conroy is having, one of the best seasons I think he's ever had for Galway. Lads who can just put pressure on and stay in the game and see is there anyone to bring in off the bench, just to help. But I'm hesitant to say it this time around, because I was proclaiming the Connacht semi-final between Mayo and Roscommon as a tight, competitive game. I was expecting a lot more from Roscommon, but I'm going to say it again. I think we're in for a right good game again this weekend. I'm hoping we are.
How do you see it, DB?
I go back on Micah's point. We would have predicted, all of us would have predicted, and we weren't blindsided by Roscommon but it all comes down to, again, matchups and the way that you want your team to set up and play. If you go back to the Tuam game, was it 4 weeks ago? It was totally wrong. Matchups in key positions, but also the way that Galway allowed Mayo run at them down the wings, didn't push them inside into traffic, Let Mayo dictate. And again, Roscommon were very much the same the last day. They were too intent on keeping the ball lateral and passing that they didn't make any insightful runs up the middle and pull the Mayo defenders in so they could release guys coming through. And it is going to be a vital part of it. But no matter what, they have to go away. There can't be any less intensity in them than they had 4 weeks ago. But that's coming off 7 months. 6.5 months of a break. You go back to Galway. There's no way any of us would be sitting here talking tonight if it was Mayo, Galway, and May in the first meeting after Galway were coming back 2-25 against Tyrone in Tuam, won the next game against Meath. They had momentum. Yeah. Now the momentum is on the other foot, and it's with Mayo. But let me tell you, this is by no means a done deal. Injuries are very concerning from a Galway perspective. They have to be. If Mayo were without Killian O'Connor versus Damien Comers or Shane Walshes of this world, that's the playing field level totally. There's too many overly dependent probably players on both sides to a degree that from a free taking capacity, Rob Trinity did well since he'd been handed free taking duties, but. It is them small things, and the matchups are going to be massive. And there's the one thing about Mayo this year. There's no sentimentality. There's like Kieran. I don't know when you retired. Did you start the last game you played? I know I did, but now it seems that shouldn't be right, really. Now what you have is guys like Colin Boyle, like Keith Higgins, like Tom Parson, like Shamie O'Shea, that have more caps and done more for Mayo football, but they're welded to the subs bench. They're not getting a minute of game time, and that means there's competition, and it means there's guys coming in, and they're really putting it up to the guys that's there at the moment.
And I think that's Mayo's trump card, DB, because if I'd much prefer to be bringing on a Keith Higgins with 10 minutes to go than bringing on a youngster that you're not fully sure of. Will he make the right decision? I'm putting him in there with the game on the line. But I think the way Mayo have it, they have a lovely system now with the youth they've injected in. And, as you rightly said, you've got these guys that have been there and done it all coming on. They're going to do the right thing. They're going to be fresh. They're going to be mad for ball because they haven't got to play a lot of it. And they're going to have legs and experience and decision-making, which are all key factors to winning games later on. I think if Mayo are a few points ahead and we're inside the last 10 or 15 minutes and they're bringing on that caliber of player, I think it'll be hard for them to lose.
Claire, sorry, Michael. Go ahead, Michael.
Quick one on that point. Just James Horan, with the way that he left Aidan O'Shea in full forward against Leitrim in the first game, he didn't. It was sticky enough. They were always going to win it, but he kind of persevered. He did move him out against Roscommon, but of all the lads he brought on against Roscommon, there was no Keith Higgins, there was no Boiler. The other lads you mentioned, Davey, weren't even picked. He was bringing on Brickenden and he was bringing on Moore. And
Jordan Flynn did well.
Yeah. So I think he's really he's investing in the youth, and I think he's going to see it through. We may or may not see him call on those experienced lads. I think he's looking at a project here.
Yeah, but it's easier when you're up 6 points or 7 points against Roscommon than if it's level against Galway in your do or die championship game. I would, that'd be my thinking on it. You might see him change that.
Who knows? Yeah, you'd still wonder. Couple.
You think
couple of games in a row.
Do you think he's written a few of the older guys off?
I don't know. I was there at the match with media, and I was watching them running when everyone was tugging in. The lads were clocking up about 2K, up and down the pitch. Fair play to them. And they weren't shying away from it. But I just think it'll be interesting to see. At the same time, would I like to see Keith Higgins coming on the next day? Would I? Hell, no. Because he's been there, he's done there. He knows how to work that. But it'll just be interesting on James Horan watch as to what he's going to do there.
I think for the group as well, like I mentioned, that that phrase again, I go back to about being in transition, but they have a lot of young players coming on, and this will be the first experience as well of a do or die situation. but there is a new wave coming. I definitely know from being, let's say, in the autumn of your career, when you've been there a long time and you just can't seem to make up that ground, you know, against someone who is just doing that little bit extra, or not even doing that little bit extra, but just seems to be on the plan and kind of in motion with the whole other group of younger players, which seems to be the way that the Mayo group are now. Like, you know, you're looking at the pace they have as well. That's a massive thing, I think, for Mayo. Like Owen McLaughlin, Paddy Durkin, Mullen as well, Conroy. Like, they're flyers all over the field. The way they transition the ball is just incredible. But, you know, the litmus test will come as well on Sunday, because regardless of the league, which I think, Mayo racked up an amazing score. But I don't think that was a real Galway team out that day, though, either. Like, what did they concede? 3-23 or something? Like, it was, you know, I was looking at the scoreboard going, did Mayo score all that as well? So it'll be definitely a different game Sunday, anyways, you'd imagine. Like,
you mentioned there's something clear on transition, the way Mayo have transitioned the ball now. But I think it's a different asset of their game, because their hardest working defenders at the moment are Tommy Conroy, are Aidan O'Shea, are Killian. So what James Horan wants, he wants them coming back and as deep as possible, attracting as much attention with them. So it leaves your 2-5-7, 2-5-7-9, your Conor Loftuses, your Oisin Mullins, your Paddy Durkins, your McLaughlins, that they have the authorization to go.
And you have Lee Keegan in the other corner.
You have Lee in the other corner. And again, Lee is probably withholding himself back, because his out-and-out job is make sure he's holding that line of defence. He has Oisin Mullen one side of him, and to pair them are like he's brought Barrett back in. Like, Chris Barrett has played absolutely no football if you count it in the terms of full games in the last 2 years, from injuries and everything else. But it's a different championship. It's a different style of a player you're looking at from a corner back. You're going, sure, Chris Barrett would get roasted now in the middle of May. Maybe he would, but he's a different kettle of fish on the 15th, 16th of November. And it's no matter what, the pitch is heavier, they're slower. You need a tighter defender, but maybe not as quick.
Kieran, this might be an old school point, but we were just chatting earlier, and you were watching obviously Kerry and Porky Queeve on Sunday. A bit of dog is needed as well, you know, a bit of getting in faces, off the ball stuff, getting involved at times. Like, you can't be too nice out there either, you know, for all that lads are writing in their notebooks after training and doing all the right stuff and having, you know, their avocado for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Like, there's a degree of dog required still. There
is, and to be honest, knowing Joycey I played with him in that 06 International Rules Tour, and you know, I'd say now Joycey's final message to the Galway boys will be going out will be, you better bring it all today anyway. And I mean, and that's what you're talking about. It's everything. You know, you have to bring the proper preparation. You have to do your video work. You have to have the diet done. And I think sometimes fellas are so into doing all that right that they have this thing in their head that I've all the stuff I'm supposed to have done finished out of the way. So the game is just going to happen. It's going to be great. And then they're out there and it's not great and it's not working and you've done everything right all week. There does have to be, I was waiting for it in the Kerry game. I was waiting for somebody, you know, I was waiting like the time Crowley got thrown down. There was 3 of them roaring at him. You know, he wasn't getting up. There was no backup coming in for him, you know, and I was just, Kerry needed a spark the last day and we never got it, Joe. And Clifford's shot was a spark. And if that hits the crossbar and hits the bottom of the net, you know, Kerry go on and probably win by 7 or 8 points comfortably, because that would have put them up 3 points. It would have been a huge injection. It would have been a confidence boost. So I feel Galway will need some of that, and they'll need plenty of the edge. Now, Mayo are a huge physical team, so maybe a young Galway team that want to run and try and play a ball, it mightn't be the best idea, but you don't have to go around the place mad looking for it, Joe. But when it happens, you know, it's a clear sign if a team are at it and they're really tuned in and they're really focused. And the timeouts is big too. I want to look at that. I thought, you know, I thought Kerry in the timeouts the last day, the first quarter and third quarter I'm talking about now, it's a minute and a half to talk to your team, to re-engage your team, to refocus them, to change things up. you know, I know in a basketball timeout when we get to sit down, Joe, and you're just sitting down and you're looking, you get your water and you get your 10 seconds to do your bits and bobs and have a nudge with the guy next to you. But then you have about 40 seconds where like you have to be dialed into what the coach is saying and any changes he's making tactically or something. And it's an area that we have to kind of wise up to quicker and use them better and actually try and refocus something, like, you know, and try and change a game plan. So, you know, I'm going to be looking forward to watching out for that on Sunday. But I think Joycey's going to have these Galway boys lit up and ready to go. And then it's a question of, have some of their injuries cleared up? Do we see some of that form that we saw earlier on in the year? Has Joyce got the nice running? As Michael said, has he flipped what happened last week against Sligo around to give them a real 2-week run looking at Mayo and then getting to watch them last week and dissect the video and then take it out onto the training pitch Tuesday night and really, really build up to it. And if that happens, as Michael said, we'll get that close game and anybody could win. But I think if Mayo come to play properly and deliver the performance like they have been, you know, I just fancy them by 3 or 4.
On that point, Kieran, managers now are earning their crust. They have 4 team talks, and the 4 of them have to make an impact. Cian O'Neill, for me, took over, and rightly so, in the Cork team talks. It's not a case of shouting. He seemed to be tactically aware of what Kerry were trying to do or how it was working for Cork. And it's a very important juncture now in Gaelic football that you have an opportunity for a minute and a half. That in bygone days you had half time and it was time to get a rest, catch a break. But now you have an opportunity to influence the game, whereas managers didn't really have that opportunity before this.
So Kieran said Mayo by 3 or 4. Claire, how do you see it?
I'd say probably around that same margin as well. I think a lot, like David's talking about, it'll depend on conditions on the day as well. You know, Cillian O'Connor is huge for frees from that point of view. But I'm going to say about 3 or 4 overall. Okay. DB?
Yeah, look, I can't. That's not going to be the cakewalk that it was 4 weeks ago, because this is Pádraig Joyce as well in his first championship year, and he said himself, if they don't get to win an All-Ireland final, well, then it's complete and utter failure. The last thing he wants to do is lose a Connacht final against Mayo, let me tell you, and that'll bring a certain bite and a certain I suppose performance from Galway. But going back to momentum, Mayo have momentum, and they're more fluid in their last 2 or 3 games than Galway have been. I think they'll get over the line, but they won't get over looking behind their shoulder. They'll be head down and full steam ahead.
Michael, we know what the heart says.
Big game.
Yeah, I suppose it's you know, you have to look at all the signals are lighting up for Mayo, to be fair to them. But I'm excited by the opportunity in this for Galway, much like the opportunity that was there for Cork last weekend. And you could well have the soft autumn showers in Pearse Stadium on Sunday that we saw down in Páirc Cueve as well, which is a leveler, and it's not going to aid anyone, but it's maybe going to slow down play a little bit, which might give a breather to Galway if Mayo hit the ground running like they did like we saw them do in the Roscommon game. I'm hoping that Galway will bring the fight, like Kieran said, from the throw in and lay a hand on Mayo, because we didn't see any of that in the Roscommon game, or even before that. Not so much in Carrick Shannon either, and just
even the league game, Mike, was a prime example.
It was an embarrassment, you know, and we're going to have a very different team taking the field that day. In comparison to that day as well, and there's going to be the hurt of that fixture, because, you know, Pádraig openly admitted how he felt after that, and he was speaking for himself. You can be sure the players, you know, had the exact same feelings. You know, we got to get a big game out of the likes of Shane Walsh. You know, he has been our star player all year. You're looking for a big game out of him. He's going to have, you know, probably Durkin or someone like that tagging him. But if Durkin keeps him quiet, you know, you're looking for Paul Conroy, you're looking for Michael Daly, you're looking for whoever else to really come in with 3-4 points and back it up. It's going to be awful tough. Mayo were favourites, and rightly so. I give Galway a shout.
Okay, very good. Well, Michael Meehan, Claire Egan, David Brady and Kieran Donaghy, thanks very much. That was great. Enjoy it on Sunday.
Pleasure.
Thanks for your time this evening.
Thanks, guys.
That is all part of the latest in our series of GAA Roadshows in association with SuperValu. You can check out facebook.com SuperValu Ireland for more information.